and dual diagnosis. Hello, and welcome to this edition of Big Hair with your host, Ethan. I maybe when people are on here, I'll show you what it's capable of doing. But in the meantime, welcome. It is Tuesday, January 4th, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. If you're just joining us, please say hello. Let us know where you're from and your favorite Disney character. Katie and I went to Disney over the holidays. We had a great little vacation. And so now we're huge Disney fans and can't wait to go back. So who is your favorite Disney character? And with that, we'll always give it a couple minutes to let people get in and get situated and say, oh, look, somebody's here. Hey, Dave, it's good to see you. Happy New Year. Hey, Em. Happy New Year. Yeah, I guess I haven't been on since the new year. Oh, hey, hey, Carol. Hey, good to see you. Hey, Valencia, it's good to see you. Yeah, if you're just joining us, welcome. Deleuze in the house. Welcome. Happy New Year. Was out of town 2 weeks ago. We were in Disney World. Hi, Bonnie in Sherman Oaks, my old stomping grounds. I lived in Sherman Oaks for about 8 years. So with that, I appreciate Tom filling in for me. And in the meantime, who's your favorite Disney character? We had a blast, and we'd like to know. So we'll give it about 30 more seconds for people to get in, and then hi, Ethan. I'm from Brazil. My favorite Disney character is Jack Skellington. Oh, for sure. That's pretty awesome. Actually, we bought the Festival of the Arts started while we were there at Epcot, and we bought a print, and they had all the artists that were there because it was opening weekend, and the artist on this piece drew on the back a Jack Skellington sketch. It's really cool. I'll have to show you next time. Hi from MS and probably Stitch. Stitch is awesome. Nikki, Happy New Year, Nikki. Minnie is my favorite. Minnie and Katie all wore pink. They matched in every picture. So shout out to Minnie. Jeremy, hello, good sir. Okay, so if you're just joining us, welcome. This is Community Conversations with me. I'm Ethan. And welcome from Brazil and all over the world. If you're just joining us, say hi. Let me know where you're from. And we're just doing favorite Disney character. Deleuze doesn't have one, and that's okay. I think that is a choice as well, and it's a valid choice. All the characters from Alice in Wonderland are pretty spectacular as well. Let's just go over some quick housekeeping, and then I have lots to talk about this. It's been a minute. Holidays, post-holidays, curveballs in life. I have lots to talk about, and so I look forward to getting into it. So if you don't know, my name is Ethan Smith. I'm a national advocate for the International OCD Foundation, which I always say just means I have OCD and I won't stop talking about it. This community conversation is intended to serve as educational content. It's not intended to replace therapy. For treatment-related questions, please be sure to work with your local provider or contact a local clinician. The IOCDF is not a crisis hotline. If you're in a crisis or you're ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, just go to your local emergency room. You can call 911 or the 988 suicide crisis hotline by dialing 988. Also, want to create a safe space and be kind and respectful to everyone. At the end of the day, we're all here to support one another. And note, this is being broadcast on several social media platforms and is being recorded. So please keep that in mind as we have an honest and open conversation. Ariel, we like Ariel a lot. The Under the Sea ride was really fun. Maleficent. There was this awesome piece of art of Maleficent from an artist that we really liked. You would have liked it. It was awesome. I'll see if I can find it while we're on here. Anyway, it has been quite a while, Deleuze. It has been about a month since the last edition, but we are back. It is a new year, and we are ready to get this party started. So first of all, I always like to start with, how is everyone doing? How was your holidays and New Year? And I know we're a little past the New Year, but how is your January starting off? It's your first time here. Thank you so much for joining us. This is very much a one-on-one conversation between us. We're all here to support one another and talk about all things OCD or not OCD. We can really just talk about anything. And I'll usually share some things that are going on in my life. Mary Poppins is awesome. I love Mary Poppins. I wonder who would win in a fight, Mary Poppins or Maleficent? I mean, that's a weird question. I don't know that we've ever pondered that fact, but I wonder who, because they both have powers, It's like, and Maleficent isn't all bad. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe Mary Poppins would trap Maleficent in her carpet bag. Um, Getting knee deep into meditation practice in Buddhism. That's exciting. That's very cool. I'd like to hear more about that, Deleuze. Um, and So, well, I'll get things started, and I'll just talk to you a little bit about my own experience. My mother's here. Hi, Liz, or Mom, or Liz. Mary Poppins would win for sure. It'd be good, right? Should we pitch that to Disney? Like that'd be. Who cares about Superman versus Black Adam? Let's do Mary Poppins versus Maleficent. I think that would be awesome. Just saying. Uh, yeah, there's all sorts of stuff in that bag, and she just hit her in the head with her parrot umbrella. But as always, if you're just joining us, you have questions about OCD, your own journey, therapy, treatment, really anything, don't hesitate to ask. We'll dive into questions as you write them in. Oh my gosh, Jeremy. Jeremy wrote, "You helped me when I was struggling. I owe you a part of myself." Well, you did it wherever you are now. That was all you. And so we are just here to support one another and share experiences. So thank you for saying that. That's very kind of you. But the credit goes to you, Jeremy. Gentile, right? My New Year's Eve was normal. To be honest, I even went to bed before midnight, but I went to my cousin's house for a little bit. That's awesome. Got out. Good. Hey, Chad. Chad's in the house. We like Chad. Chad's a good guy. All right. Well, I'm going to start. I'm going to get the conversation started. And then as you think of things, please feel free to fill in. So I think we'll have a theme tonight. Tonight, I'm going to talk about how OCD can just pop up. We talk about it all the time. We talk about how sometimes it can feel so far away and yet so surprisingly close. Stephanie wrote, "My OCD makes me feel anxious most of the time." I think we can all agree with that too. I think when our OCD is kicked up, we definitely feel anxious for sure. So as I said, and I always love being honest with y'all, and I think this is such a good reminder and lesson and opportunity and all kinds of things. So as I said, Katie, my fiance, and I went to Disney World, and we had an amazing trip. And then on the ride home, we were literally in the car, and she said she had a scratchy throat, and I happened to have a COVID test with me, and we tested, and she was positive. So that was new. And I fully, like, we kind of threw caution to the wind. We went to Disney. We wanted to just go all out and live and do crazy stuff. And so we did. And, it definitely was in the back of my mind that probably one of us or both of us will come home with COVID. So she tested positive. It was so faint. We weren't sure, but like, we're pretty sure. So we put on masks, drove the rest of the way home, And by the time we got home, we took another test, and it was definitely COVID. Well, after you've been gone for 2 weeks and disconnected and on vacation, sort of the last thing you want to do is turn your life upside down. You want to get into bed and start your routine. And so obviously Katie went into the bedroom and quarantined, and I went on the couch because we don't have a guest bedroom. And so therein started and we haven't had COVID. Neither one of us had COVID prior to this. So this was kind of our first time. As you know, I've talked about my health anxiety in the past. So, I was kind of like, oh crap, because I have health anxiety. And so Monday morning came, and we had a doc come out to the house and do an official test just to verify everything and give us recommendations. And indeed, Katie had COVID. I tested negative, and so we were then put on our path. Right, Katie was then going to enter quarantine for at least 5 days, and I was coming back to work on Monday. We both had work on Monday, and we were going to attempt to re-engage in life while being in this weird quarantine situation. If you've had COVID and you followed those rules, I'm sure you can relate, as Fabio is talking about. And I'll get to your questions for sure, Fabio, at 7:08. I will get to your questions very shortly. This was challenging. I don't sleep well in general, so I definitely don't sleep well anywhere but my own bed. So I immediately was really anxious just about getting enough sleep and working, let alone, am I going to get COVID? Is Katie going to be okay? And Katie is probably the worst person to lock into a bedroom because she craves the outside. She wants to be outside as much as possible and moving and on the go. Like if you put me in a bedroom for 10 days, I would be totally fine. Water, food, I'm good. Katie, like, she doesn't want to sit still. She wants to be moving. And so it was literally like the worst possible combination. And she was amazing. But I will tell you, it was challenging. It was really, really challenging. And what I discovered was Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, my OCD was pretty good. I had some health anxiety, but I fully expected to get COVID because I'd been with Katie the whole time. We had been together as a couple the whole time and trip in the car for 7 hours. We weren't, so I fully anticipated, and I was doing all the same things she was doing. So, okay, Fabio. And also, yeah, you can watch later as well. It's recorded. You can be right here on the IOCDF on YouTube or Facebook. But when Wednesday rolled around and Thursday rolled around, I started to notice that, like, I was like, well, wait a second. Am I going to get this? And suddenly, like, it dawned on me, I'm like, I don't think I'm getting this. Like, I wasn't getting sick. I wasn't testing positive. And then the stakes became higher because before I was like, I'm going to get it. I'll probably be sicker than Katie because I'm older, but I'm sure it'll be mild. I'm fully vaccinated, all that stuff. And Katie's feeling great now. She had a very mild case, felt ill for a couple days, but she's doing fantastic. And hopefully tomorrow she'll be out of quarantine. Out of like testing negative, or Wednesday, which tomorrow is Wednesday. I'm doing well, aren't I? But my OCD, the minute I had a chance of not getting COVID, suddenly my OCD got so loud. I mean, like crazy loud, and loud to a point where it was just literally attacking everything. And I'm sure you all can relate to that. And it was attacking all the things on the lower part of my hierarchy. So not so much my big themes, but it was attacking, everything from germs and cleanliness and which totally makes sense. Katie, I'd go get Katie's dishes. Oh my God, these dishes are contaminated. Where do I put them on the counter? Where do I put them in the sink? Once I wash them, oh, I touched the top of the sink. Do I need to clean that? But then the Clorox bottle's dirty. Like, was starting to go through that loopiness. And then it started to attack all my food stuff, and it started to attack work stuff. And it got really loud to the point over the weekend where I was really engaging in a significant number of compulsions. More so than I have in probably a really long time, 10, 12 years. I feel grateful that I was probably doing 10 or 15 minutes, which beats, 8 to 15 hours, which I'm sure we can all relate to. My volume's not working. Hi, Stacy. Is anybody else having trouble hearing me? Or Amanda, are you having trouble hearing me? Stacy, maybe it's your headphone connection or maybe it's your volume. Ever consider that? Not my volume, it's your volume. No, I'm just kidding. But it seems to be okay on my end. If Facebook is weird, maybe try Instagram as well. Hey, Deirdre. Instagram, YouTube. Anyway, so my OCD kicked up and it attacked literally every aspect of my life, and it made it really, really challenging. And it reminded me a lot of, what life was like prior to really entering a stage of maintenance and management, so much to the point where I started getting nervous. Oh my God, what if I'm relapsing? What if I'm going back to where I began? And started having all the really intense thoughts. And, I know what to do. I had insight and objectivity into what was going on. I understood the fact that it was valid that my OCD was spiked. It spikes in times of stress. This was definitely a stressful situation. We never had COVID. Katie had COVID. Who wants to go back to work, after 2 weeks of vacation? There was just a lot going on. And so, yeah, by the weekend, I was experiencing a lot of OCD around a lot of different areas of my life. And really were impacting me a lot more than it used to. And then came the shame, right? I was throwing away food that my OCD was screaming at me that this is bad. This is going to make you sick. Throw it away. Don't take the risk. Don't worry about it. Just, and my healthy self was like, it's fine. That's your OCD. Oh, but wait, Katie's sick and all this stuff, and I don't want to do it, so I better throw it away. I threw away tons of food. I really got looped in for a strong couple of days. I was grateful in the sense that I was employing a lot of skills and tools, which we can talk about. And that mitigated probably going down the rabbit hole much, 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 much further. And also massive shout out to my partner, Katie, for being so amazingly supportive as well, even in a room, right? Being able to help me, navigate and say, Ethan, this is what we can do and this is what this is, and let's try to be this and be sensitive and compassionate with yourself, but at the same time, yeah, Valencia, exactly. So I like to say that last week was a messy success, right? I worked, I took meetings, I really didn't miss a beat. I become reclusive when I get depressed or in my OCD, where I just want to kind of disappear into a bed. I didn't do that. Partially because, Katie was relying on me to eat, but also because that wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I think that, it was challenging, and I was very aware of what I was doing and the choices that I was making. And I think I mitigated a lot of it. I also gave in at times where I probably shouldn't have, but I'm okay with a messy success. I think, at the end of the day, I can look at the situation and go, never been through it before, already have anxiety about health, never had COVID, kind of hit our house for the first time, getting back in all of those stressors. It makes total sense that my OCD would go crazy. And what's interesting though about being in maintenance and management with OCD is, like, the minute Monday hit and I had a routine again with work, it started to dissipate. Monday was 100% better than Tuesday. Today was 100% better than Monday. And I'm sort of coming back to baseline, which is why we have to just give ourselves so much love and compassion about these things. Like, that last week wasn't my fault. That I wasn't broken. It's part of my disorder. It's so hard to remember that in the moment, that it's part of your disease. And so, yes, there are choices within that, but it's hard. And so, I can either sit here and beat myself up for, throwing away fish and throwing away salad and throwing away this, or I can pat myself on the back for eating all the other things that my brain went, oh my God, you don't know, and this and that and the other thing, or touching things, or, it's like we set rules, right? I had a system for how to deal with all of Katie's stuff. And then over the weekend, it had been after 5 days. So she masked up and came out of her room, and we went for a walk outside, but, like, that disrupted the safe area, right? So then my brain went, oh my God, everything's contaminated again. So anyway, Katie's giving me a lot of praise, but I don't know that it's deserved. I think that it was a team effort. But the point that I wanted to make is, OCD is so challenging, and as far away as you can feel from it sometimes, it can reappear really, really quickly. And I've talked about this before. This is nothing new, but this week, unlike other times, has really sort of reminded me a few things about the pervasiveness of OCD, personally, about how it can attack just literally everything, and how sticky I can get, or we can get. And you all talk about it, a lot. You all talk a lot about it, but in the past, you can get stuck on one particular theme, but how it just jumps and sticks to every little piece of uncertainty that goes around. But I think also the beautiful lesson here is, like I said, I call it a messy success. Was it beautiful? No. Was it perfect? No. Did I actually have more good hours than bad hours, and good days than bad days? Yeah. Was I functional and did what I needed to do? I did. Was I happy doing it? Was I present doing it? Not all the time, but that's okay. That's a very ACT thing to do, acceptance commitment therapy, which is being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And let's be honest, I wasn't all the time. I was very shameful that, over the weekend, that I was feeling a certain way or acting a certain way. But I also knew I had enough, like I said, objectivity and insight to recognize why it was happening, where it was happening, and that it would most likely dissipate as things started to normalize, which is exactly what's happening. And, it's just the nature. And as things normalize, you sort of build your tolerance back up to withstand and have a tolerance and threshold for the things that were making you anxious and uncomfortable before. And so, things that I gave into last week, I probably won't give into this week. It'll be a lot easier to manage, and so forth and so on. So I just wanted to share that because I don't think, we're alone in this process. As you know, just because I'm an advocate doesn't mean that I'm OCD free. My life is pretty amazing. I'm very, very blessed and grateful for where I am, but that doesn't mean that, OCD has left me alone for 12 years. But this felt different in a lot of different ways. It was really challenging. Uh, it was very like low level OCD stuff that had been a long time since these things had bothered me, and it was really intense in the moment. But I understood why, and my job was to be the best warrior that I could be and give myself lots of grace when it didn't work out quite that much. But I was hoping that in some way by sharing you could relate to the experience and see that we're on the other side, and life continues on, and I still wouldn't trade anything in the world for where I am and what I'm doing. And also, by the way, like, dealing with OCD last week is such a different story than dealing with OCD prior to getting treatment and help and understanding, right? I mean, like, if you know my story, and my story isn't unique, the suffering and the struggling is awful. But there's a big difference even in between me curled up in a ball staring at a wall for 20 hours a day, just crying and unable to move, and moving my body last week through discomfort and anxiety and OCD, and whatever was happening, and still being able to move through it and catch myself getting stuck or frozen and working my way through it. Right. And if you contrast and compare like those two Ethans, it's such a vast difference. And I think that's so beautiful. And I'm not talking about how I think everybody can reach that and attain that. And that's why I advocate. And I love to talk about this kind of stuff because um, it's like, yeah, I can look at last week and go, that was a tough week. OC really kicked me in the butt. But if I compare it to where I was before treatment and understanding and like finding the IOCDF and all that stuff, it's not even comparable. It's not even remotely comparable. It just seems like it kicked me in the butt because my life is so manageable, where OCD doesn't impact my life on a day-to-day basis like it used to. So therefore, when it does, it seems like, oh my God, what a disaster. But then if you look back prior, so for those of you that are struggling or went to treatment or went to residential and now feel like they're struggling again, like sometimes it's okay to look back and go, wow, this looks very different than what I experienced before, and even me struggling last week is still such a huge win in my life for where I've come from, where I'm going, what I'm doing, and how I chose to live into values, even though I was navigating, some content that was really, really loud, and how it quiets back down really well, really quickly. So let me dive into some questions. Thank you for letting me I was excited to share some of that with you and get your thoughts and advice. And, this is an open conversation. So this just isn't about, we're all in this together. So if you have thoughts, ideas, suggestions, if you agree, you disagree, like, let me know. But Fabio, I don't know if you're still on at 7:08 p.m. How to find affordable ERP treatment. I am from Brazil. My feeling is that is not applied properly. I was considered remote with U.S. professional, but exchange rate at this time is not easy. Yes, accessing treatment in the U.S. is really expensive, and in general, insurance doesn't cover it. So unfortunately, it's an international crisis and it's a national crisis, and it's something the IOCDF and us advocates are working very hard to figure out how to navigate. There are some clinics that will treat out of country. I know Beyond Borders CBT is one of them. I also know that Neurobehavioral Institute in Florida, they have some clinicians that are licensed in Brazil as well. I will give out my email at the end of this, Fabio, and if you want to email me, I can try to send you some resources that may be able to help you. But in general, accessing treatment is a pain. And we have some upcoming live streams on navigating insurance, navigating the difficulty at accessing care and treatment. And that is our number one goal, right? Effective, affordable, accessible care that doesn't take 17 years to find. So I'm so sorry, Fabio, that you are, I hope I'm saying your name right, but I'm so sorry that you are having trouble accessing care. And yeah, you said, I was considering remote with US professional. Okay. But exchange rate at this time is not easy. Absolutely. I understand that. I also know, I don't know if NoCD is treating in South America or not, but email me at the end. I'll give out my email address. you'll have the benefit of just skipping ahead right to 5958, and where I say my email address. And we can see if we can point you in the right direction for sure. Deleuze wrote, I'm ramping up the stress in my life, but I feel like you maintain a mindset of stress being opportunities to grow and become more loving and present in your life. It ends up being more beneficial. I love that, Deleuze. 7:08 p.m. 7:08 p.m. Amanda. Sorry about that. So this is interesting that you wrote this. So I'm going to read it again. I feel like you maintain a mindset of stress being opportunities to grow and become more loving and person and present in your life. So, I mean, there's two kinds of stress. There's eustress and de-stress, right? So eustress is good stress, and uh, distress is bad stress, right? And OCD can pop up with either stress, but I think that stress is necessary. Good stress is necessary. Bad stress is necessary. Although we don't want to have it, but it's a part of life. And I mean, growth doesn't happen without struggle. That's where growth is happiest. You know, if I always say, if I could figure everything out and grow to be the person I dream of being, you know, sitting on a beach sipping a pina colada, then show me how to do that. But unfortunately, like, all of my biggest accomplishments have come out of my biggest challenges, and what at the time seemed like my biggest disappointments, and what looked like steps backward. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think there are opportunities to grow and become more loving and present. I love the way you've said that, and I also think that sometimes it's hard to see in the moment when you're going through a hard time that down the road it may be really a good thing. I am a huge proponent of silver linings. I believe that everything has a silver lining, even if it doesn't make sense in the moment or even shortly after or at some point. But one day, at some point, you'll go, you know what? I'm this way because of that, or that was a good thing, or even though it was awful, like I grew because of that reason. I can look at, most circumstances in my life that at the time I thought were going to break me and go, wow, I don't think I'd be here doing this if it weren't for that. And so, when a day is really hard or something is really challenging, I try to remember that. It isn't to make me feel better. It's just to remind myself that at some point there's going to be gratitude for that moment. The other piece I'll tell you is, you wrote stress in my life. And it's like, I think it's a gift to be able to be impacted by stress in your life that isn't OCD, because that means you're living. And having myself, I can only speak from my own experience. Been on the sidelines of life because of OCD. I'm grateful that life, not all the time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here like stress is awesome, I'm going to be miserable, but I am grateful that, like, the hardest part of my day can be a work thing or a friend thing or a stress thing or whatever. The fact that life and living it is what impacts me in my day, and not so much OCD, because that means I'm living and being present. And that just tells me, and that's just continual reminders that I'm living toward my values and I'm not living a life that OCD wants me to live. And so I'm a fan. I think that's really well said. Uh, let's see. I love your comments, Deleuze. I always love the chats because it's so, I love people advocating. Uh, So Deleuze, this is interesting too. I wrote, I really like the idea of OCD being a blessing in disguise, not trying to romanticize the suffering, but you have to go through suffering to get to the sacred. Um, there's a lot of conversation about this. What I will say is, I don't know that any disease or disorder, whether OCD or cancer or anything else, is a blessing. I think what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think, no pain, no gain, and all of those idioms, short-term pain, long-term gain. I think that, any hardship, if you can make it through it, you learn your moral fabric and your moral fortitude and who you are as a human being. And, if anything, it's less about OCD being a blessing and more about being struggle, which is the common humanity, whatever struggle looks like for you, whether it's a mental illness, a physical illness, a financial burden, whatever it is. Overcoming that struggle teaches you something about yourself. So for me, I was convinced OCD was going to kill me. You could not convince me otherwise. At my worst, and I'm not even talking about suicide. I'm like, OCD will kill me. It's going to take my life. And you could not convince me of otherwise. And at each point in my story where it just got closer and closer to rock bottom, I was convinced it was the end. You could not, again, have convinced me otherwise. I discovered a strength I didn't know I had. Other people believed I had it. I sure as hell didn't believe I had it. And it is those moments that I will carry with me. You know, OCD in and of itself was my struggle. You know, I don't personally think OCD is a blessing, but the experience, you know, I would love to grow. Like I said, I'd love to grow without that, right? But that's not life. Like that's not reality. You know, whether it's a whatever it is, being able to recognize that strength in myself. And even today, I'll tell you, like, well, I don't know if I have that strength now. I was, you know, that was 12 years ago. I don't, you know, I really feel that way, but maybe I do. I don't know. Um, so I totally get what you're saying, but I think it's important to recognize that, you know, I don't know that we're necessarily talking about, you know, what we're talking about is the ability to overcome and recognize that ability in ourselves and what a blessing that is. And I think that is a beautiful thing. And that is what's sacred. But I totally get what you're saying. Um, let's see here. We're talking about some COVID stuff. Oh my God, Chad, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Chad wrote that he recently lost his mom to the Delta variant. I'm so sorry to hear that, Chad. My condolences to you and your family. That's awful. Sorry, just scrolling down. I love Amy at 7:18 p.m. wrote, "Messy success is good. Perfect success doesn't exist. We're human." Oh my God, I love that. So that's true. Perfect success. And that's why I specifically said messy success. I think success looks like a variety of things. And whether we think something is perfect or not, like I will take messy success all day long. I learned about messy success when I was really struggling. If you don't know my story, my keynote speech from 2014, I go into all the details of it. God, it's getting old. I need to do another one. Like my hair's still brown. I may be able to, anyway, it doesn't matter. So, you know, I remember, so acceptance commitment therapy, which is just this idea of living a value driven life despite how you feel. And obviously that's a lot of that is an exposure response prevention as well, gold standard for treatment. But I just remember when I was out of residential and sort of living on my own and had to re-engage in life, and I had to go to work. I had a job. I got a job at Guitar Center selling keyboards. And I remember being on the phone with my therapist. I was living alone, away from my parents, scared to death. My OCD was screaming at me, and they were trying to get me to engage. You know, I'd been kicked out of the OCDI, all this crazy stuff. And I said to my therapist, I said, "I can't go to work today. I can't stop crying." He's like, "Well, okay. Well, why can't you go to work?" I'm like, "I can't." He's like, "What do you mean you can't? Are you being held down? Are you being chained? You mean you can't go to work?" I'm like, "No, I'm not being chained. I'm just saying I'm crying a lot. I can't go to work." He's like, "So cry at work, cry on the bus." I didn't have a car. I take bus, subway. And I was like, "Well, I can't do that." He's like, "Why?" You know, every can't he challenged. He's like, "No, you won't. You're choosing not to. Put on sunglasses, get on a bus, cry on the bus, go to work. You got to cry, go to the bathroom and cry and come back." So I did. Maybe not the first or second day, but eventually I gave in and I would go to work crying. And, you know, every 10 minutes I go to the bathroom, have a cry, you know, think all my scary thoughts and then come back out and sell a keyboard. And I started laying in bed at night going, "That was messy, but I'll take the win." You know, and those small wins start to really build. And obviously there was less crying and less compulsing, and it built on itself. So I love a messy success because a success is a success is a success. And that's why we really have to celebrate our little wins. I talk a lot about little wins, a lot about little wins. I think we don't celebrate our little wins enough. I think that we, especially in treatment, it's very hard to identify our little wins because we're very black and white thinkers, very all or nothing. So, you know, just because before I couldn't get out of bed and today I got up and took a shower, but I'm not at work, picking up the kids, doing all the things, playing professional baseball and, you know, laying golden eggs. So because I'm not doing all that, I'm a piece of crap and I'm a failure. It's like, no, you spent 6 months in bed and now you took a shower. That's not even a little win. That's a pretty strong win. So easy for us to gloss over those little wins. So little wins come out of messy success. I feel like we're writing my book right now. It's very exciting. So I love what you just wrote, Amy. I'm a huge fan of this. And yes, we're human that I know of. Jeremy wrote, my best advice is to learn how to let go and just be. After a while, you rewire your brain and it gets easier. And that is very true. It's always easier said than done. But yeah, us trying to control, right? Control the thoughts, control the outcome, control the certainty. We don't have control anyway of it. That's the illusion that we can control these things. That's what compulsions are. Compulsions are manufactured to control an outcome that we don't want to happen or a feeling that we don't want to feel. And that's what they're meant to be, but they don't really guarantee anything other than you'll have more OCD. So I like that. And thank you, Jeremy. I love all your statements. Stephanie wrote at 7:20. I'm going to read this. There's some person I just feel anxiety and extremely uncomfortable when I meet or received their call. I will then immediately wipe my HP, clean the place, and take a bath and change clothes. Only I will okay. I'm not sure if you, Stephanie, you want to follow. Are you saying that you feel contaminated after you talk to a specific person? If you're still on, feel free to elaborate. I'll go down the comment thread and see. But I'm just wondering if that's what you're talking about. Kayli, hey Kayli, it's good to see you. When my OCD at 7:20, when my OCD really spikes, I become drawn to isolation in bed too. I think part of it is due to sheer exhaustion. So I feel you. Nice job at not withdrawing things. I appreciate that, Kayli. Yeah, I think part of it is exhaustion, and part of it is I just don't want to deal with it. It's an easy way for me to check out and just, of course, it follows you. You dream about it, worry about it in bed, and all that stuff. But just, I get, and I think for me, it's also shame. You know, I'm embarrassed, and I talk about it. Not being, it's a disease, not a disorder. It's not our decision. It's not a choice, you know. But I get embarrassed, you know. When you're in those moments, you forget the things that I just said, and so I think that, like, you know, that plays a role in it too, and creates a little bit of depression as well. So yeah, I agree. Deleuze wrote at 7:20 p.m. I think the most frustrating situation is when your higher brain knows what you're afraid of is nonsense, but your survival brain refuses to let go. So you just have to sit in the discomfort. I talk about this a lot. I love this. This is what makes OCD particularly painful, in my own opinion, right? You have these two, I call them cameras, but you have these two cameras and they're both monitoring things. And on one hand, you, as Deleuze say, you have the camera that's going, well, that's the situation. That's actually how the situation is. And here are the odds and all the things. And yeah, no, you don't have to worry about it. And the other camera's going, oh my God, don't do it. Don't go near it. It's going to kill you. And this is so loud that, you know, it drowns out. Now, that's what makes it particularly painful. And I've talked about this too. I don't want to jump the gun in this, but, you know, when I was, maybe you all can relate though, when I was in a psychiatric hospital before I got the right treatment and they diagnosed me as psychotic, when I was really at my worst with OCD and hadn't had the right treatment yet, I was walking around the psychiatric hospital and I was around individuals that were psychotic and whatever their diagnoses were, right? And I actually was jealous because what I observed was that they didn't recognize that they were psychotic. They believed in whatever they believed in 100%. Well, OCD, you know, you believe what you believe X amount, and then the other percentage is your healthy brain, and they fight each other until someone wins. And I was jealous, A, because I didn't see an out for me. I hadn't even heard of ERP at that moment or the right treatment or the IOCDF. But to me, I thought OCD was particularly cruel because you got a window into the healthy perception, but then the other window was the OCD screaming. And I just thought that was really painful and shitty that war was happening. And I was kind of jealous of the fact that, you know, so-and-so thought that whatever their reality was, and that's all they understood. And yes, they were afraid and scared, but they didn't recognize that they were that way. So hopefully that wasn't too stigmatizing in what I was saying or offensive to anyone, but I think that's one of the more painful parts of OCD. But I also think it's one of the reasons that OCD is so treatable, because if you can pull on that string that is that part, that higher brain, right, that knows the reality, and you can start to pull and untangle that, and that can start to speak louder than, or you can tune into that. Dialectical behavioral therapy, which is not a gold standard treatment for OCD, but it's a nice adjunctive treatment to OCD, calls that higher function wise mind. And if you can tune into that wise mind and kind of listen to it, it's oftentimes a whisper, but if you can catch it before the OCD gets noisy, and I try to employ this a lot in my own life, you can kind of get that insight you need before OCD goes, it's all scary and terrible and kill it. So yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think that's one of the more painful aspects of OCD, but it's also one of the reasons that OCD is one of the more, if not the most treatable mental illnesses. So sorry to go off on that tangent, but let's see here. You're right. You're welcome, Amy. You're welcome, Amy. I'm more than happy to share always. Where did y'all stay while at Disney? We stayed at the Beach Club. It was great because it was a 5-minute walk from Epcot. It needs to be refurbished. So for the amount of money that we were paying per night, I don't know that I recommend it, but the location was killer, and we had a great time. The pool was pretty dope. We didn't go in it, but we had a great time. I don't know that I'd stay there again though. And yeah, Katie, yeah, she was I think Katie deserves a lot of credit for being trapped in a small room as a ultra marathoner who typically runs for 35 miles at any given time. I told her to run to the bathroom 300 times, and so Adriani, hopefully I got that right, at 7:25 p.m. or Adriani wrote, does ERP treat all subtypes of OCD like real event false memory? Great question. So it does. So for those of you that are new to the stream or are unfamiliar, ERP stands for exposure and response prevention. It is the gold standard of treatment for OCD. In short, and we're actually going to do a town hall, I think next week, on what we're calling ERP 101, the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts, all about it. So if you want to know like a lot of specifics around ERP and learn more about it, you can definitely tune in. I hate when I lose my place. Okay. But essentially, ERP, the way I like to describe it is ERP is sort of like a reverse Mad Lib. If you remember the Mad Libs where you had like a noun, adjective, verb, and you fill in the blanks, right? ERP is basically the instruction manual to how to manage successfully OCD. And there's one blank in the middle. And that blank, insert your symptom, insert your subtype, insert your theme. There's a lot of conversation around, do themes matter? Do subtypes matter? Is it important to delineate, sexual orientation OCD from harm OCD, from germs, to just right, moral scrup, religious scrupulosity, how important it is to differentiate those things. And at the end of the day, the IOCDF, and we really firmly believe that, OCD is OCD is OCD. Okay. We all have the same OCD, all of us in this room. I mean, if you have OCD, I'm not diagnosing you if you don't have OCD and you're just here for a friend, but we all have OCD in this room, right? But it can manifest in different ways. And I always like to say, like, cancer is cancer, but there's different kinds of cancer, right? And you can treat cancer with chemo, and that's still the primary treatment. Now, there's different ways to nuance the chemo, right? Different types of chemo. So essentially, what is happening when you go for treatment, right, is they're not treating your subtype actually. They're not treating your theme actually. What they're doing is the clinician or a healthcare provider is using your subtype and theme as a way to introduce you to ERP. So for me, I had self-harm. I was afraid I was accidentally going to hurt myself, right? So I went in and we used my fears of touching my head and all my things to introduce me to ERP, what it was, how it works, and understand it, right? But as your theme shift and move around, which happens for a lot of people, the treatment is exactly the same. It's all still exposure and response prevention. It just shifts into the things that you have to do in regard to your symptom or theme. So the exposures to what you're exposing yourself to might be different. The response prevention might be different, right? But it's still ERP. And so that's the beautiful thing. And that's something that is so important to realize, that I can't tell you how many people I talk to that go to residential. They went for one thing, they get out of residential, they get a new theme or subtype, and then like, oh my God, I have to go back. It's like, no, you don't. Why didn't they tell you that OCD is OCD and ERP is the treatment, right? Is the goal. Now there are other treatments. I'm not saying ERP works for everybody, but it is the gold standard, meaning that's the first thing they should try. And want to try and will try, right? So yes, it works for real event. It works for false memory. It works for moral scrupulosity. It works for just right. It works for harm, self-harm, sexual orientation. Every iteration of OCD it works to, because OCD is all about the unwillingness to accept uncertainty around what it is your OCD is attacking. And typically our OCD attacks the things that we value most, things that we care about most. And that's unfortunate, but it does, right? So at the end of the day, whether you're washing your hands 500 times because you want to get the germ off you, or you're not leaving your room because you don't want to walk by your mother because you're afraid you're gonna accidentally kill her, it's all about protecting yourself and trying to create certainty around the fear or the feeling. ERP is just about saying, hey, let's embrace the uncertainty. We can say that it's probably OCD. We don't know for certain, but we're going to roll with it. Yep, maybe to all the things, and let's just live with the uncertainty because it goes against your values. And let's move forward. And that's why it works for all subtypes and symptoms, because at the end of the day, it's, can you tolerate the doubt? Can you tolerate the discomfort? Can you tolerate the anxiety using the skills and tools that you would be taught? But can you tolerate that and live with the uncertainty that comes up from not engaging in compulsions? Can you tolerate that in order to live a more value-driven life and not live in accordance with your OCD? It's a systematic process. It takes time. It's like working out at the gym. You can't get like totally ripped overnight, clearly. But it works. And crap, I had another thought to how it treats, but I'll come back to it if I remember it. Who knows? But anyway, so that's the gist. Is it's all. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. And so everybody here already copes with uncertainty, right? And you may feel that OCD has penetrated all of your life, but do all of you here across the street? I'm just throwing things out, but there's something in your life that you do that OCD isn't attacking that you don't think twice about. Did you get in a car today? Do you know how common it is to get in a car accident? Did you cross the street today? Do you know how many people get hit by cars? Right? These are all elements of uncertainty that we're willing to live with. And really, we have to rewire our brains to be willing to live with the uncertainty around what our OCD is attacking. And so that's why ERP, exposing ourselves to the discomfort, resisting the compulsions, sitting with the discomfort, and over time letting that habituate on its own, and realizing that you don't have to do anything for the anxiety to go away, and tolerating the uncertainty, because an uncertain life is better than living a life in which you're trying to control an outcome that you don't have control over. You could spend 80 years trying to prevent something and look back and go, wow, that never happened. Or did it happen, or wasn't going to happen, or whatever. Is that the life you want to live? That was a shift for me. I could lay in bed all day long in my hands and prevent my head from getting hit, but I would die because I wasn't eating, I wasn't drinking, right? So then, like, the alternative is to take a risk, live with the uncertainty that I may, and try to live a meaningful life anyway. And if it happens, I'll deal with it then. And so that was a really long answer to this question, but it's important. It's important information. So here's what I will say, and you can agree or disagree. I think that themes, subtypes are important for diagnosis. I think they are important for relatability, like where we connect as individuals with OCD. We all have OCD, so we can all connect. We're all here together, right? But if I have emetophobia and I'm a fear of throwing up, and somebody else is like, oh my God, I have that same thing. Wait, when I was this age, did you do this thing with this? Like, there's so many commonalities. And yeah, you connect. But I think from a connection standpoint and forging friendships, I think themes can be important. And I also recognize and understand and agree that also certain themes come with certain levels of stigma around them in the public that other themes don't. Everybody shows hand washing on the news. But if you talk about, being afraid of what if I accidentally hurt a child or touch a child or whatever, that there's a certain level of stigma with that. So all of those things exist within subtypes and symptoms. But as far as the treatment goes, I personally don't think it matters. We have to understand that ERP and acceptance commitment therapy and all the modalities of treatment treat all types of OCD, because OCD in and of itself is just that, OCD. So there are the subsets for the reasons and to employ the ERP treatment itself. But beyond that, I wouldn't try to get too hung up on your theme or symptom. I will tell you that I think the more important you think your theme or symptom or OCD is, the harder you will have engaging in treatment and getting better. The more special we think our OCD is, the harder it is to treat. And that's just from personal experience. You're special as an individual. Your OCD, no matter what you're thinking, isn't special. It's not special. It's not interesting. It's none of the above. It is OCD. It's boring, and let's stop paying attention to it. Easier said than done. But I sat there and I listened to people talking to me just like this, and I listened to the therapist, and I went, "You don't get me. You don't know me. You've never met anyone like me." And everybody like this is a group. Like we wanted to out OCD one another. Well, my OCD is way worse than yours. Let's rate your OCD. Like, how long do you spend? Because clearly that's not helpful, but you do. But at the end of the day, don't treat your OCD as special, because it'll only really inhibit your ability to get better. I know it did for me. The minute I really connected the dots that like my OCD about all this stuff was no different than somebody else's OCD about something completely different, it's like, oh, well, maybe this can work for me. So yes, to all of the above. And we can talk more about why ERP seems like it might be difficult to treat real event or false memory. And I can get more into that as well in other talks. There's some great talks on real event and false memory as well. So there are some things that are like, well, that really happened. So like, how can you expose yourself to something that really happened and all of those things. So we can dive into that. Again, there's nuance to all of this, but the short answer, which I don't give often, is yep, it can. Should I have just done that? Should I just said yep? Oh, great. Kayla wrote, have a look at the latest IOCDF blog. It mentions a couple of therapy access organizations in Brazil. Another option would be to reach out to the Brazilian author of that blog. You'll have to look and see who wrote that. Thank you, Kayla. And I also, it might be the same, one of the two clinics I'm thinking of, but there are resources there. They're, obviously not as plentiful as the US, but there are resources there. So, hey, Jessica's on or was on. Good to see you. Erica wrote, yes, my experiences have shown me what I'm capable of overcoming. 7:33 p.m. Sorry, Amanda. Totally prefer not to, but looking back on it in my past, an event presents, it's really crazy in a beautiful way that we all have been through and are still here thriving in our own beautiful ways. Obviously speaking to silver linings and tough times and struggle and growth that we were talking about before. Chad at 7:39 p.m. wrote, went to VA last weekend and took the opportunity to go visit a place that's pretty triggering for me. I had a panic attack that led to one of my worst episodes of harm OCD flaring up there. Was super anxious about going, but was happy I faced the anxiety and went. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I think that you had the understanding that might happen. It did happen. I'm sorry for that discomfort, but I think you can look back and, I would also ask you, Chad, can you see any, I don't know what the purpose of the visit was. In other words, did you go to a theme park or a cemetery? I don't know. But for whatever the reason you went, were there moments that you were able to be present or moments where you got what you needed out of the experience, even if it was just for a few seconds, because those are the wins that we want to kind of focus on, right? Those little wins. So, you can say, yep, I went there and I had a huge panic attack and it led to all this stuff. But while you were there, did you have any even seconds or moments where you got what you wanted out of that place? And even if you didn't, that's okay too. To your point, the fact that you went and faced something that you knew might cause you some discomfort is absolutely huge. But also, if you were able to experience some present mindedness or some sort of moment that was meaningful to you, then that's awesome too. Oh, Stephanie followed up from 7:40 p.m. because this is my family person that I have to take care of. I feel stressed and always worry something happens, so I need to do those cleanup to stop my OCD thought. I understand. Okay, I'm not sure if the individual that you're talking about is sick or there's just an emotional contamination response, but I understand that you take care of someone and you're probably worried that you may something may happen to them because of something that you've done. So you need to make sure that you're clean or whatever, is to make sure they're safe. And listen, there's always going to be realistic situations, right? COVID, it's a great example. Wash your hands. Well, I just practiced 10 years of not washing my hands. Now you're telling me to wash my hands. But the reality is, so nobody's saying don't do the things that will protect or help or what experts recommend. The reality, though, is OCD will never be happy. So, like COVID, if they said wash your hands for 20 seconds, well, for OCD, 20 seconds isn't long enough. If you did it for 19, you should do it for 22. And if I did it for 22, I might have missed that spot. So I'm going to do it for 30. I just stopped. I don't feel quite clean enough. I'm going to go back for 40 more seconds, right? Like the trick is to identify what the recommended whatever is, and then try to use that as your guidepost. And so, and it can be much harder if you live with an immunocompromised person and you work in a large crowd and you come home. Are you bringing COVID home to that person? That is a thing. That is a real thing, right? So do you not go home? Did that person stay in your room? Like there are acceptable risks that we have to take because at the end of the day, we still have to live our lives, right? So, and that's where how much ritualizing, how much compulsions, how much is OCD stealing from you? And what acceptable risks are you willing to take? My friend is a kidney transplant survivor. That's not the right word, but she's extremely immunocompromised because of that. She takes immunosuppressants. She wanted to go on vacation because she wanted to get out. She got COVID. It made her really sick. She doesn't regret going out. She took the risk. She didn't want to live at home. She had a great vacation. Now, Stephanie, I'm not suggesting don't wash. I'm just saying that like all of us, there are actual things that we have to do to navigate the world. And we also have to look at, what's constricting our lives and what's allowing us to live a more meaningful, life. And I think we know lots of folks that, and I'm just using COVID as an example because it's a real world example. It's a disease. It kills people. As Chad spoke about his mom. And so at that point, you have to ask yourself, what is it worth to you? There's individuals on here that haven't left the house to protect themselves, and that's understandable. And there's people that have, gotten COVID 7 times. And we are not here to judge, all we are here to do is support and let you know that, when OCD is involved, it's very hard to live a value-driven life. Those two things are mutually exclusive. You can't listen to OCD and your values. And so we really want to help you identify your values through our own personal experiences. Not a clinician, never said I was. Did play a doctor on TV. If you've been on the stream for multiple years, I'm so sorry you've heard that joke for the 40th time. If you're new, cool, right? So, there's always many times there's a real component to the OCD, and we have to take that into account. So yes, you take care of someone, and if you're a nurse and you have OCD, you have to sanitize and you have to put on gloves and you have a protocol, right? But if you're a nurse and you spend 2 hours replacing your gloves and putting on new gloves and replacing other gloves and washing those gloves, that's where it's OCD, right? That's where it starts to really impede your ability to do your work. So kind of have to look at the differences in those things. Katie wrote, "Yay, stick with the ick." That's her saying. She owns that saying. If you use it, you will be sued. I'm kidding, sort of. I know I am kidding. Excellent tangent, Ethan. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yep, Katie, stick with the ick. Late to the party was actually doing some ERPs. Awesome, Beth. Good to see you. Let me just scroll down real quick. I know we have 2 minutes. Do the IOCDF do virtual live conferences for OCD advocacy? They do. So there's the live conference, which is this year in San Francisco. It'll be in July, and then they have a number of virtual conferences as well, where you can attend on Zoom and from the comfort of your own home. And so there's Spanish language, there's hoarding, there's faith and OCD. There's we even have a virtual version of our in-person conference as well. I don't know if the website is still iocdf.com/conferences, but you can definitely go to the IOCDF website and check out all the conferences for 2023. There are many virtual and the in-person as well. So without a doubt. Let's scroll down here. Asked you were doing a few days ago, Katie, how are you? Said Ethan. Okay, I'll let Beth. Oh, well, Beth, 7:46 p.m. I know how you were doing a few days ago. Katie, how are you? You said Ethan was taking care of you. He didn't catch it. This is the thing that I'm hiding from. March 3 will be 3 years. I've been in my home, not going anywhere, petrified of the pandemic, long COVID too. Beth, and that's kind of what I was talking about. I think that that you have to do what's best for you, but also recognize what is also OCD, and asking you what kind of life do you want to live. Again, just speaking from my own personal experience, we love you. You're a regular here. We care about you. I don't want to speak for Katie, but I think she would not take what she did back. I think at a certain point, all of those things are true. That But I also think that you can get the flu and die. I think that you can. There's a million diseases. Those people that you read about, that little kid that went in the lake and got a brain eating thing and died. I mean, there's crazy shit, right? There just is. And I understand. It's valid. COVID is valid. Scary. There's variants and all the things. But Beth, I would start with simply like, what do you want for yourself? Like, what do you want for you? What life do you want to see yourself living, in the next 6 months? Um, and is the risk of getting COVID worth just staying in? And if it is, that's okay. There's no judgment at all. That's your life, and you're absolutely welcome to live that life. But if it's also worth risking because there's something more important that you want to do, will you look back in 30 or 40 years and say, man, I wish I did that thing, and maybe it was worth risking getting COVID to do it? I genuinely don't know, but just food for thought. As we navigate these times, you are not the only one by any stretch of the imagination. And we all were terrified to go out and do things. I remember the first time I went out, I had, I think, 3 pairs of gloves on. And I mean, like, and Katie and I will tell you, we were the last to sort of take off our masks, and really Disney was the first place. And yeah, she got COVID. But we had fun. But we love you, Beth, and we just care about your well-being. And however we can support, you have my email, which I'll give out at the end. So yes, they're all the things, but I've said this from the beginning, which is, has COVID really created more uncertainty in the world? I don't think so. We're just talking about it. I guarantee you, if the news reported every time there was a car accident, like it was a breaking story, none of us would ever get in a car. I mean, I don't know the statistics, but there are probably like umpteen thousand car accidents a day. Like, once every 3 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever it is. I mean, think about that. If every day your news on whatever device is interrupted by when a car accident happened, none of us would be getting in cars, right? There was always disease. There was always some weird super bacteria that was immune to every antibiotic. There's always been terrorism. There's always been bad guys doing crappy things. All of this stuff has always existed. So it has the certainty. Is there really more uncertainty? Is the world really more dangerous? I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't know about, and COVID is real. Nobody's saying that it isn't. COVID kills. Absolutely. COVID has killed millions of people. There's unfortunately an individual on here that lost his mother. I have individuals that have passed and friends that have lost dear friends, and it's awful. It's awful. But what level of uncertainty are you willing to risk in order to live a life that's meaningful for you? And that's really all I'm saying. No one here is debating COVID or anything else. I'm simply saying that, yeah, it's scary. And yeah, there's things out there that are scary that were there before COVID, right? I'd like to think about, Beth, maybe, what was out there before that you maybe didn't consider, that you were willing to sit with that uncertainty about, right? And do things anyway. And maybe that's interesting food for thought. But anyway, Amanda, ping me if you need to get off. I just want to try to get to the rest of the questions because I haven't been on in a month. Katie is chiming in and answering questions, which is awesome. So thank you, Katie, for being a rock star. You're all rock stars. Real event is tricky. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through real quick. Small wins are small wins. Absolutely. Meditation does help for sure. Meditation is a treatment, but it's a great tool for living presently. God, you guys are awesome. Leanne wrote, "This live is the only live where people can hear you speak during the week," right? Yeah, it is. Every other week is this live. You can see the schedule on iocdf.org/peace of mind. And then once a month or once every other month, I host the town halls as well. But if you'd like to hear me more, maybe we could figure something out. But as of right now, yeah, it's community conversations is every other week. Let me just keep going. You guys are awesome. So I'm actually, yeah, I'm going to wrap. I'm going to wrap this up. So much great advocacy in the text thread. Thank you for being here. Y'all are incredible. And I love, and we'll talk more. I see a lot of conversation about Real Event. Katie's been weighing in. We can definitely message me when I give out my email. There's some great town halls on Real Event. I don't know if we'll be able to find the links right this minute, but if you go back in the archives on Facebook or YouTube, there's great Real Event and false memory stuff, as well as blog articles as well. And we can definitely dive into Real Event on our next community conversation. Just shoot me an email, and it would be the first thing we talk about is Real Event and false memory, and really anything else that you're passionate about. With that, I want to thank the IOCDF and Amanda being behind the scenes. Real quick, camp registration is open. You can register now for this awesome event created for youth and OCD and their families. The program will include live sessions for parents, guardians, and opportunities for fun socialization with other families. You can register by visiting iocdf.org/camp. Also, registration for the online hoarding disorder conference is also open, whatever you like. This conference offers an opportunity for professionals, from therapists and social workers to firefighters and other public safety officials, to learn how to work effectively and compassionately with individuals with hoarding disorder. It'll be held March 4th through 5th, and you can register today on the IOCDF. If I didn't get to your question, I missed your question, I apologize if I was reading quickly. But if I missed it, you can email me. This is my personal email. I'm the only one to check it, so it's private. Feel free to ask me questions. You agree, you didn't agree, you hate me, you love me. I do look like Mark Ruffalo. I'm better looking than Mark Ruffalo. Feel free to add anything. You can email me at justethan@iocdf.org. Yep, that place right there. I am caught up on emails, so feel free to email me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. You give me a week or so. I get pretty hectic, but I will definitely email you back. Also, please never hesitate to email the IOCDF at info@iocdf.org if you need suggestions, help, questions, anything. You can also obviously visit the IOCDF at iocdf.org as well. Tons of great resources on there as well. And that's the story. I hope you have a great evening. Thank you so much for spending your time and taking your time. This is a win. If you were here with me for an hour or however long you were, it's a win. You're doing something for yourself, for your own mental health, for my mental health. You're here to support me as much as I'm here to support you. So I appreciate that. And yeah, it's recorded, so you can view everything later. So with that, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday evening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Although I think next week, again, I'm doing a live stream. Anyway, 2 weeks will be another community conversation. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay vigilant, feel the feels. Don't let OCD off the hook. And we'll see you next time. Have a good night.